I wasn't this awful, terrible piece of shit that I had kind of created for myself, this incapable failure. Being a largely successful athlete in my youth had created this, first place or nothing, right? You got to be the best at it. And if you're not the best at it, then who knows and who cares? My ego was a very, very huge hurdle of becoming humble and becoming, being able to sit beside my own opinion and my own thoughts and my own ideas and ideology, realize that I am but one piece of all of this, right? And, Ryan has his way and I have my way. My ex has her way. Kevin has his way. And they're all...
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. I just want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by SoberStrong Apparel. SoberStrong Apparel makes heavyweight premium gear for people who take sobriety seriously. 10% of every order goes back to recovery centers. SoberStrong also runs an impact sponsorship program that puts gear directly into facilities for people just starting out. So if you're sober curious, check out SoberStrong Apparel, grab some gear, rep the crew. And also use code ROCKBOTTOM, all capital letters, for 15% off. Now 15% off. Used to be 10, now you get 15% off this gear. Love what this company represents. They support sobriety. Stay sober, stay true, rep the crew. Get yourself some high quality clothing, y'all. Enjoy this episode. All right. Welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. I'm here with my guest today, Greg. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
Good. Well, really excited to have you here. And as you know, this is primarily a recovery podcast. So we go into a little bit of background about people's history with addiction, alcoholism, and then their, how they came back from it. So I'll start off by asking you, what's your sober date? What was your drink of choice and where you're from?
Born and raised in Los Angeles. And my drink of choice, my favorite drink growing up was Free and Cold, right? I think that's probably a pretty normal, but I gravitated when I wanted to create the greatest effect. I gravitated to rum. I did Bacardi rum by the handle. Didn't stop buying pints and liters and single drinks and stuff. It was a case of handles, a 6-pack case of handles from Costco. Had to buy it in bulk because I didn't want to run out at 3 a.m. when I couldn't go get it anywhere, right? My sober date, November 12, 2020.
Wow. Okay. So going
on
on
5 years a little bit ago.
Awesome. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's amazing. So let's kind of get into just a little bit about the early days. Like, what was childhood like growing up in California and your family dynamic and all that stuff? Like, what kind of things led into you drinking in the first place? I didn't
come from a broken home. I wasn't abused social or emotionally or physically. I don't know if that makes me a rarity or in the past, it feels like with people kind of growing with this disease, the disease of addiction, not just alcoholism, and people kind of identifying the markers in their life and the ways that they are, gravitating to use various coping mechanisms, whether it be drugs, alcohol, sex, shopping, food, as a way to mask their emotions and to survive what's currently bothering them versus having a childhood that created it. I did not have the childhood that created my addiction. I grew up with a group of guys. We called ourselves the Heads. There's probably 15 of us, and we just ran roughshod around town, West Side in Mar Vista in West LA. And, we were the group that showed up with the keg. We were the group that showed up with the cases of beer and the weed and the cocaine. And, that was who we were. And it kind of became the expectation, that's, at least for me, I can't speak for others, I would get, they would say, I was the kid that started shaving at 12. I'm 6'7", 240 now. I was, at 12, I was 6'1", and I had already started shaving. And, 6'2" by 6'5" by the time I went into high school, kind of thing, So when, they would say, "Hey, Greg, don't shave this week, because we're going out on Friday." And I was the one that would go into the liquor store and buy all the supplies, because I had this, at the time, what I thought was a man's beard, but I look back at how and I go, yeah, it probably wasn't.
Peach fuzz.
But no, it was stubble, but it wasn't, it was patchy, but I didn't look 16, I'm standing probably 6, 8, 10 inches above the guy selling me the beer, with a 5 o'clock shadow that took me 5 days to grow. Right. So, but, that's just kind of, and my story is that I kind of, being an athlete, being an elite athlete, growing up, one of the things that I talk about is, that's part of my story, is I always got away with it. Whatever it was, right? I got away with it. So it was self-generating, and this perpetual motion that just grew, where I could do it. I could get it. I could earn an F in class and get a D because it kept me on the basketball team. I could, get arrested or run away from the cops and not have a problem because it'd get taken care of, whether it be by my parents or otherwise. I mean, you could argue that my parents maybe were a little bit enabling. I'd come home from school and do my homework in 35 seconds, because then it was done and I was allowed to go do what I wanted to do. Didn't matter whether it was right or not. It was done. Right. And then I'd come home at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night on a Tuesday, after having smoked weed and drank beer and fucked around the neighborhood for a while. So I think, and then as I grew older, I just kept navigating towards a life that enabled that, or celebrated it. Like, I was in a fraternity. Certainly they celebrate that. They celebrate doing it. A college athlete in a fraternity. And then I went into coaching. I've been a volleyball coach for 36 years now. I started in my teens, and, now I'm lucky enough to do it for a living. Right. I own a volleyball club here in Los Angeles. But, I went from playing into coaching, and, what's the old story? The college coach sits down behind his desk, pulls out the bottom drawer, puts a whiskey bottle on the table, pours a couple of shots, sends one across the table, and that's the coach's life. That's kind of the way that I saw it. So that's what I created. And in that world, it's not frowned upon, right? We would go on the road coaching college. We'd go on the road and we'd go to the bar with the staff of the other college and get shit canned the night before our match together, the two staffs sitting around drinking, So it was just this lifestyle that kind of grew, right? And so in the mix there, in my 20s, I got married when I shouldn't have. And it was very volatile, angry. I can't speak for her, but her behaviors upon reflection were very addictive, right? I can't say she came to the terms that I did with my life in hers. And so that dissolved itself. I mean, that was over before it started. Like, we got married and turned around and got separated a year later and divorced 3 years after, or 2 more years after that. I think the grand total was 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And that was just a destructive, violent and angry and throwing shit at each other and breaking glasses in the kitchen and things like, she took one of my favorite watches and took a hammer to it, just stuff like that. Just really ugly, nasty, emotional things that we were obviously not prepared in our lives to be. And then my second marriage was the one that I thought I'd figured it out. Got married in my 30s, had kids, had the life. I was chasing my dreams to be a college coach. I wanted to be, the next John Wooden of volleyball, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
And, I quickly started to realize that that's a lot harder than it sounds, right?
Yeah.
And so life started creeping in. I'm like, and after I moved to Washington, Olympia, like we just talked about before we went on air, I lost a job there in Olympia. And I realized that my 8-year-old child had lived in 4 states and 6 houses, because I was chasing my dream, right? I mean, they essentially were, we were essentially a military family, moving every 2, 3 years at the most to try and chase this thing down. And that's when it all really kind of unwound a little bit for me. I'd already had heavy drinking tendencies. I was already, upon reflection, all of the characteristics of being a chronic alcoholic were already well established at that point. And now it became a tool that I could use to avoid my own self-perceived inadequacies.
Yeah.
Professionally, emotionally, family. I wasn't the father I wanted to be. I wasn't providing the life I wanted to provide. My relationship with my ex-wife was non-existent. We slept in different bedrooms, all of that. It had all kind of dissolved. And at that point, I started drinking very heavily every day. And, I was watching a podcast and Johnny Knoxville was on. And he made, because he's been sober, I don't know, 25 years or 30 years or something like that now. Maybe it's less. It just seems like forever. And what he said was that he was very lucky to have this massively destructive, I'm paraphrasing, massively destructive form of addiction where he had to change or die at a very young age.
Yeah.
It just came in like a sledgehammer and he was provided no choice. And he said he felt badly for people like me, where it just progressed an inch at a time, one drink at a time, one bottle at a time, until I got to the point where I was in my mid-50s. And now it was all unraveling. And the only place I found any kind of escape, I won't even say comfort, escape, was in a bottle of rum.
Yeah. So it was very progressive for you.
Yeah, very slow. I was if you've gone to the meetings, they talk about the guy that's got 2 cars in the garage, the white picket fence, 2.5 kids, a dog named Spot, the house, and it's all holding itself up just fine. And yet the guy that's paying the bills is just a raging alcoholic. That was me. I'd managed to get myself to that point, but I had no willpower at that point, not even willpower, no desire to stop doing it the way I was doing it.
How much do you think you were consuming once you got to your worst?
My worst for the last year, give or take, I was consuming an entire handle of rum a day.
Jeez.
Sometimes more, sometimes less. But last year I went in and out of the hospital 3 times, couple of different outpatient programs, couple of different inpatient programs. I got kicked out of the house. I lived in my truck on the street for a little bit. I lived in a crappy old motel with, dealers and hookers and stuff in the room next door. And
Had you lost your career at that point?
not yet, amazingly enough, because of COVID. So I could do all of these things online. I could hold it together straight, not funny, but funny. Life is weird. I was a PE teacher at the time. When I stopped coaching, I got my licensing. I was a PE teacher originally in San Diego, and coaching is largely it's not very many people get to make a career out of coaching. Very few opportunities where you get a full-time salary, et cetera. So I was teaching PE and I was elementary school teacher, and COVID hit and we were doing it remotely at that point. When it really shattered, when my life really shattered, that's where I was. So eventually I found my way into a trailer, and I was in my trailer online with a tumbler of rum and soda water, teaching elementary school kids PE, sitting in the bed on my trailer. Just jacked up and chasing it at 8 o'clock.
Yeah. And then going into school and teaching, trying
Well,
to
never went into school. So it was it's all remote, which made it easier for me to justify nobody's going to see me this way, when in fact, every kid is this way. I don't know if parents reported me or not. I have no idea. But I do know that when I went into my second facility, my boss basically had no choice at that point. He had to let me go. I had already run out of all of my leave. I'd exhausted every avenue that he could possibly provide me to get past it. And I've since gone back and sat down with him, and I actually thanked him. And I said, hey, you went above and beyond anything anybody could have ever asked for somebody that was in my situation. and I appreciate you, and I'm grateful for you for really staying with me as long as you did. The person that he hired to replace me is still there, to my knowledge. And I told him, you made a fantastic decision. She's going to do a great job with these kids. Like, I just want to let you know that I respect you. I appreciate you. I'm thankful to you. I'm grateful to you, at this, on this side of it, because he could have easily said, hey, rehab number one, we're teaching 5-year-olds right now, or 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds. I don't want that kind of example in my school as a principal. And he probably would have been very justified doing so.
So how was your relationships with your wife and stuff were pretty strained at the time because you were living outside of the house, and how was everything with your
Well,
kids too?
I didn't have a relationship with her. She basically explained that she didn't want anything to do with me. My kids, when I went through, so February 8th of 2020, I was asked to leave the house. Went into the hospital a couple of times for various alcohol related issues, hypertension, heart issues. I was throwing up, I had blood coming out of my nose. And then rehab came after my third visit to the hospital, where I spent the night. A social worker came in and said, your wife sent me, she wants you to go to a rehab facility in residential. And I agreed, and I thought, okay, this is going to be it. Like, I'm going to go get clean. She'll take me back. I'll work on it. I know there's work to do and all that stuff that we kind of tell ourselves. And then I was there. So it was a 28-day facility because, I got sick in 28 days. So going to rehab for 28 days is going to make the difference. I'm being marginally sick, right? And I don't know, I was there a week, maybe 10 days, when I received the letter and the notice that she had filed for divorce. And so, not her fault that I'm an alcoholic at all. I don't blame her for that. I would have appreciated different timing.
Yeah, really. I've
You
heard of
know,
that happening quite a
right,
few
right.
times of people getting those.
Right. Yeah. And looking back, she did what was best for her, or at least what she thought was best for her. And I don't fault her for it now. At the time, I used it as a catalyst to say, fuck you to the world. I'm just going to keep going in the direction I'm going. At the same time, I got a letter from both my children saying that they weren't going to have a relationship with me as long as I was an alcoholic. So I'd lost my marriage. I'd lost my kids. I'm in a rehab facility an hour and a half or 2 hours away from home, and I don't have a home anymore. I went there from the trailer. When I bought a bottle of rum when I left that facility on the 28th, though, and started drinking it on the way back to the trailer.
And that
And I
was
think at
about
that
10 days in,
point,
you said?
I'm sorry.
And that was about 10 days in, 20 days in?
Oh no, I stayed the full 28.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you
yeah,
left right after you got that divorce paper.
I think, I don't know why I stayed. That's a good question, right? Why do we do anything? I went from the hospital to that rehab facility. I needed a walker to walk because my nervous system was crashing. And there was just so many things that said, do it differently, Greg. And I did. Right. And I think I committed myself when I left that rehab facility to commit suicide by bottle.
Yeah.
I didn't see a whole lot to live for. I was actively drinking as much as I could. I would drink until I passed out. I'd wake up and start drinking again until I passed out. Wake up, start drinking again until I passed out. It's just this vicious cycle. And if at any point I ran out of liquor and I had no way of getting liquor for an hour, I was shaking violently, throwing up, like my body could not function without a large volume of alcohol in it. I was completely incapable of functioning. And on November 12th of 2020, so there's the ongoing discussion, right? Is your first day of sobriety the day you didn't drink or the day you decided to stop? I used the day I decided to stop. I drank up until the time I went to the hospital on the 12th, and I checked myself in because I was bleeding from every orifice I had. I felt like I was having a heart attack. I couldn't keep food down, and when I threw up the food, and then I threw up blood. So if I yawned too hard, I had blood coming out my nose. I had blood coming out of my eyes. So I mean, I was just physically falling apart. So I went and I checked, and the blood in my bowels is what really scared me, because it wasn't just a little bit, because I'd had a little bit before, right? We find a way to justify it and just say, oh, if I stop drinking for a day or two, it goes away. It was diarrhea, but it was all blood. So I checked myself in on the 12th, which was a Wednesday, and I woke up a little bit. This is full blown COVID at this point. So I'm in the hallway at a hospital, and the hospital's just jacked full of people that are in massive stress, various levels of COVID problems, right? So I pass out in the hallway, and I wake up in the ICU, and they said, we're looking for a room right now. We're going to admit you. And they might have given me more information than that, but that's all I can really remember. It was kind of foggy. And that was at some point Wednesday night. And what they had said was, we're going to put you into a medically induced coma because we're worried that you're going to stroke out. And so they did. And at some point Saturday morning, late morning, 10, 11 a.m., I come out of this, or they bring me out, and I'm laying in bed. I look up, there's the foggy, soft white lights of the fluorescence that a hospital room has, and there's this old 80% bald 70-year-old man hunched over my bed. And I think to myself, holy shit, I died. Like, because I don't remember being told that I'm going to be put in a coma. The last thing I remember is passing out in the hallway of a hospital. And so all I have is this white vision with this bearded, bald man standing above me. And it was the doctor. And he went on to tell me all of the different complications and the 6 organ systems that were in near failure or high distress: my gallbladder, my stomach, my intestines, my lungs, my heart, my liver, obviously. And we had a long conversation, and he said, Greg, I've had this conversation a few times, and I'm going to be as clear with you as I can. You have 2 choices. You can either stop drinking today, and you might live long enough to see your grandchildren be born. At the time, my youngest was 14 and my eldest was 17. So a ways away, right? And then he said, or you can leave here, continue doing what you're doing, and you'll be dead inside of 6 months. He said, there's just no way that your organ systems that your body can't sustain this, and he said, without massive intervention, you're not going to make it.
Were you honest with them about how much you'd been consuming? Or did you try to sugarcoat it like I probably did a million times?
I don't know. I sugarcoated it a lot leading up to that. And I don't think he asked me. I don't think it was pertinent to his statement. I don't recall him asking me, how much are you drinking a day?
Yeah. Because I don't think it mattered. Their body shutting down.
Right. I mean, I think he knew that in order to do what I'd done to myself, there was an enormous amount of alcohol involved. And he knew it wasn't 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 drinks a day. He knew it wasn't that. And so at that point, I was probably 80% on board. Wasn't 100% on board yet. And just bizarre, right? Alcoholism at its finest.
Yeah.
And so my cousin, part of the story woven in here is 4 days before I went into the hospital on the 12th, my Uncle Steve died. And my mom and my Aunt Marilyn, Uncle Steve's wife, were twin sisters. And we grew up and never lived more than a mile apart. So my mom and my dad and my Aunt Marilyn, my Uncle Steve, and the 5 children, me and my sister and my 3 cousins, all boys, all grew up basically as one family. We went everywhere together, vacations together. The Barents inspectors were together everywhere we went. So my cousin is more like my brother. He calls me while I'm in the hospital, and he says, Greg, I'm coming to get you. I'm like, you don't need to come get me. I'll be fine. I've learned my lesson. I'm going to go, I'm going to go back to my trailer. I've figured it out. I'm okay. You don't need to come. He's like, that's bullshit. I'm coming to get you. Cause I'm in Olympia, Washington at this point, and he lives down here in LA where I live. Over the course of a day or so, I say, okay, I agreed to come back to Los Angeles, I think I just realized there's really nothing in Olympia for me at that point. No, I don't really have any friends to speak of. I don't have a job to speak of. My wife and kids don't talk to me. Why would I stay? Right. Like if I choose a different seat on the Titanic, maybe it'll be different. Right. So I agreed to go to LA more as let's just get out of here and start new somewhere else kind of thing. I'm in the hospital 6 days. We're on day 3, 4 when these conversations start happening. And mind you, it's a 19-hour drive or an 18-hour drive from LA to Olympia. So a couple of days go by and Kevin's like, when are you going to get released from the hospital? I keep saying, I don't know. At one point he says, stop lying to me. I said, I'm not lying. I hand the phone to the doctor who happened to be sitting right there. He's like, no, he's lost this amount of blood. We're waiting for his blood count to get to this level and then we're going to release him. So I call Kevin one night and I say, I'm being released tomorrow. You can start driving up to come get me. His response was, Greg, I'm already here. I'm just waiting for you to get out of the hospital. So he didn't wait. He didn't wait for me to call him. He took proactive action and he was waiting for me. He didn't give me the opportunity to go back and get into my trailer and start repeating the cycle. So I credit Kevin often with saving my life because he took that decision out of my hand. He made it easy for me to give in, to step into acceptance and move forward, and in the least judgmental way possible, in the most supportive way possible. He just made it easy to step into acceptance that I couldn't do it without somebody being there to guide me. Right. And so I came down to LA and it took about 2 weeks to find the right spot. And I found a place and I admitted myself and I did my first 30 days and it's month to month. And as I was nearing the end of the first month, I called my dad and because I had no income, any income I had, I left in Washington to help care for my kids. And because I was living at home and I just said, Dad, I don't think I'm ready to leave. I can't leave right now. I'd been back to the hospital a couple of times. I was still telling my therapist to go fuck herself. Something inside me knew I wasn't ready. And, so my dad and I talked about it and we signed up for 2 more months. So I spent 91 days inpatient. And that was probably the second best decision I ever made in my life.
What were some things that you started to discover while you were in treatment? Like, did you figure out you're trying to numb certain things during your course of drinking?
Yeah. I started mostly understanding that I was a pretty good person. I wasn't this awful, terrible piece of shit that I had kind of created for myself, this incapable failure. Being a largely successful athlete in my youth had created this, first place or nothing, right? You got to be the best at it. And if you're not the best at it, then who knows and who cares? My ego was a very, very huge hurdle. Becoming humble and being able to sit beside my own opinion and my own thoughts and my own ideas and ideology, realize that I am but one piece of all of this, right? And, Ryan has his way and I have my way. My ex has her way. Kevin has his way. And they're all just as good as the other, and being able to redefine failure and redefine success in more of a growth mindset and more of a progress versus a product-based mentality is really what kind of started, right? I stopped being all or nothing. And when I say I stopped telling my therapist to go fuck herself, it's really that was, I think, probably one of the first 2 or 3 sentences that I said to her when I was in therapy in December of 2020. She was 30. She's still my therapist to this day. She was 33 maybe at the time. And I was thinking to myself, I'm 50 years old. What the fuck do you have to teach me? You can go fuck yourself. And I was just angry. I had a lot of anger, and I had a lot of displaced anger. I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of self-loathing that I had to reconfigure in my mind. Right. And I wasn't a huge believer in God. So I struggled with AA in the beginning, like I think a lot of people do. And that first 8 months of sobriety is kind of where 24 More, it's not kind of, it is where 24 More was born. I did not like sitting in dusty old basements drinking shitty coffee and having, half the people walking in and out to go have their cigarettes. And it's while important. And while all the time I spent there, I always kept a journal. I always wrote notes. I was that guy sitting in the corner with his notebook open, writing the whole time. You see one of us at every meeting. I still do it. That's how I pay attention. If I'm not doing it, I'm thinking about something else. And it's also where I started writing. We talked about this a little bit. I said to my therapist, I'm a big fisherman. I wanted to go fishing, sport fishing, specifically big game fishing, ocean fishing. But, that was the show up at 5 a.m., crack your first beer as the boat's leaving the harbor, drink until the boat comes back into the harbor, offload your catch into your truck and go home. Right? Mm-hmm. And we had this long going debate for about a month and a half or 2 months leading into that summer. Like, it's not a good idea. Probably don't want to put yourself in that position this early in your sobriety. And what was it? Against therapeutic advice, ATA. He said, if you do this, I want you to understand you're doing this ATA. And I didn't know what ATA meant, so she had to explain it to me. I said, that's fine. We'll talk. How about I have a session before we leave? And then if need be, I'll have like the day before. And if need be, I'll have a session when we come back. I get on the boat, and this is really where 24 More was born. So I'm sitting on the boat, white knuckling it with my journal open, sitting in the galley, and this guy on cue walks into the galley the second the boat pulls away from the dock, and he says, I don't remember the beer. Give me 4 Coors Lights, right? And he takes his Coors Lights and goes, hope you have a lot of these on board because me and my friends are drinking. And the galley hand said, I don't remember the numbers. I've got 20 cases of beer, and there's 30 people on board. I think we're going to be okay. And I said, make it 29 because I don't plan on drinking. Like I had to announce it. And so we got into a conversation, and it turned out the galley hand was 2 years sober. The deckhand was 5 years sober. And the captain was like 25 years sober. I had somehow, by the grace of AA and the universal powers, selected the boat in San Diego that had a sober crew.
That's pretty cool.
And so we were just talking. I was talking with them, and on this journey, because you spend a lot of time riding on the ocean and considerably less time actually fishing on these charter boats. And I just thought to myself, there's got to be more people like me that don't want to sit in a church basement and get sober in the church basement. They want to be outside. They want to do things. I went back out on that same boat later that summer, and we had a meeting on the way out on the deck because there was 3 other guys on the boat that were sober, and the captain, put the boat on cruise or put one of the other people up there, and 7 of us had a little meeting on the deck on the way out. We had a little AA meeting, and I thought to myself, this is sobriety to me. And I started golfing with my friends, more of not because I love golf, which I do now, but I've been golfing for 5 years now. But, I needed to walk. I needed to move. And my friend Jeff is now just had his 23-year sober birthday 2 weeks ago, 3rd of January. And so he got me walking and got me playing golf. And so I'm like, why don't we go golfing? Why don't we go fishing? Why don't we go camping, kayaking, whatever, as our meeting?
That's such a great idea.
And so I planned a couple of trips, and they failed. Financially, they failed miserably. Everybody loves the idea, but nobody wants to pay the money to go fishing. So it was hard because I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have a model. I didn't have projections and spending. And I did it like an alcoholic in recovery would do it. Like, hey, I just have this idea. Everybody's going to show up.
Yeah.
Wasn't a whole lot of thought and dynamic put into 24 More, but what it did I created a website, and I created a home space where I put a few stories. I go back and I tinker with the website every now and again. I just kind of keep it alive right now. And then fast forward 4 years or 3.5 years to summer of 24. And I open this volleyball club, and I start life coaching. I got a certification through Jay Shetty. I'm a certified life coach now, focusing on resiliency, growth, and success.
Cool. I just interviewed somebody who was in the Jay Shetty program. So that's pretty cool.
And my clients are people that are trying to create a growth mindset, trying to, work through their life issues, whether it be alcoholism or failure on the job or what have you, right? How do we create a growth mindset? How do we change how we think so that we can change how we live? And so I run all of that through 24 More now. So I kind of had the business with where I'm paying, small business taxes in the city of LA and the county of LA and all this stuff. So there were some pieces that were already in place. And the intention is to go back to it at some point and try to, now that I have a little bit better idea of what it means and how to do it and would be a little bit more not susceptible, be a little bit more agreeable to an organic growth of the business. I don't know about you, Ryan, but when I got sober, like really realized I was sober, I walked out of rehab 91 days later and I'm like, where's my parade?
Yeah.
Don't you guys see what I did? Look at me. Like my ego is still there, right? My ego is still saying, I did all this. Where's my recognition?
We forget that life is still going on the outside, and it's not all about us.
Not a single person gave a shit that they did. My parents cared, my cousins cared, the people that loved me cared that I was in there and getting better. But the dude walking down the street that didn't know that the building I just walked out of was a sober living facility for people trying to get their lives back together, they didn't know me from Adam. They could give a shit less, right? So I had to and that was part of the figuring out my ego, right? And trying to figure out where it belongs. It certainly didn't belong on a float in a parade just because I managed to get myself sober. That's not life. Life doesn't work that way. So allowing it. And when I started 24 More, I think I kind of was still in parade mode, thinking everybody's going to love this. They're going to jump on board and look at how great this is going to be. Right. And it didn't happen, which is fine. Right. But it did allow me to kind of gain some perspective, and it gave me a moment of failure where I saw it happening a certain way and it didn't. And how am I going to absorb that? And how am I going to work through it? And what is it going to mean moving forward? And it did lead me to writing, which I still do. And, that has become writing and therapy have really become the ways that I get it out of my head and put it someplace else, that I'm not just chewing on it,
That's an example of something you wrote. You mentioned an essay earlier. What was that about?
So the book is called Authentic. It's courageous humans who changed their lives by rewriting their stories. It's a collection of stories largely surrounding COVID. A lot of people's lives were drastically altered during COVID. Some people's businesses shut down their bricks and mortar, sent everybody to live at home, and some people lost their jobs. One of the stories in there is about a family that adopted a young woman, a child, 5-year-old from South Korea, who spoke Korean and they didn't. And how did that change their lives? That in conjunction with COVID. And so there's a lot of these kind of what did COVID do to generate this new path forward in the world? And that story that I wrote in there is essentially a version of what I just told you. Going to the hospital, getting sober, going through rehab, and, how did I get to a point of acceptance, and what does that look like? And I reread the story recently and I was like, God, that is just disjointed. You can tell that I was 8 months sober when I wrote it, because every idea that just came into my head crashed onto the paper, which is fine. Right. That's what it was. And, now it's largely, now I do mostly just poetry and short, brief ideas that I get out onto paper. My phone, my notes page on my phone, and I've got 3 different journals going so that there's always one within arm's reach kind of thing. It helped me start journaling for volleyball coaching. So now I have a lot of reflection that I put into my coaching. I'm a vastly different volleyball coach now than I was 5 years ago. I really am athlete focused, and how do we get the most out of you, and what do you want for yourself? Because you coming to practice happy and hardworking is and looking to see how you can grow and better yourself as a player and as a person is more valuable a tool for a high school kid than winning any championship. 1% of kids are going to go on and play college sports of any kind. Coaching to that 1% is doing a huge disservice to the 99.
That's so true.
So I don't dismiss the 1%. I think what I do has value to them, and I think they can elevate to that level. But I think it's really about how do we create good, strong, healthy mindsets for kids to go into the world and problem solve and speak to power. How do you talk with your coaches? How do you talk with your teachers? How do you talk with your boss eventually, right? Because we can't have these conversations. Why can't you? A parent will call me about playing time and say, I'm not talking to you. I'll talk to your kid. Tell Johnny. Johnny's my fake child, the fake athlete. Sally and Johnny are my fake athletes because I don't find many children named. I have Johns, but no Johnnies. Tell Johnny to call me, or I'll go up and talk to Johnny. Hey, how are we going to do this, Johnny? What do you want out of this? Right, and have that conversation with the young athlete, with the person that's trying to grow into an adult and be a positive force on whatever life they choose to have. And so far it's growing. I mean, our club is growing organically. We don't advertise a whole lot. We do a little bit of social media, but not a lot, largely because I stink at it. I'm Gen X 1,000%, man. Yeah, I don't understand how to do it. I see the value, but I don't know how to generate the value. So you'll see my Instagram page and it'll have 2 months or 3 months of nothing. And then it'll have 3 weeks of everything I do in the world. Like I wake up and I sneeze and it's on Instagram. Then there'll be 3 more months of nothing, right? Because it's really just an extension of where I am in my world, right? And that's what they get, and that's organic, and that's okay. You know, I've accepted that's okay. It doesn't have to be. I don't have to have the Instagram that has 1 million followers. I'm glad you found me. I think you found me. I don't think I found. Maybe we followed. Maybe I followed you and you followed me back. I don't know. Saw something that we liked in one another.
Yep. I saw your page was recovery based, and I liked what you were doing. I mean, I see pictures of you skydiving and stuff, and I was like, this guy's enjoying recovery, and I like to hear more about that because so many people, they look at recovery like life is going to get boring, but some people it's like their life gets more exciting. You start to take more risks, but just not ones that are, stem from addiction and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I'm definitely afraid of heights, by the way.
Same here. So, yeah.
It's crazy. I went skydiving with my son, with my eldest. They're non-binary. I apologize to you, Teddy. And in addition to getting over my own fear of jumping out of an airplane, my Teddy went out just before me. So they leapt first. We went for their 21st birthday. That's why we went. So they leapt, and then I was 15 seconds behind them, maybe 10. Time kind of compresses and expands in weird ways when you're in that moment, right? And it froze for a second. I think to myself, holy shit, my child just jumped out of an airplane and I watched him do it. Like, that seems like the worst parenting decision of all.
Yeah.
Right? and then the guy behind me is nudging me towards the door, and I'm butt scooting towards the door myself. I'm like, holy shit, now I'm going to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. And the fall wasn't a problem. I have inner ear issues. So the parachuting, the G's that were created by figure eighting over the landing spot was where I kind of lost I got a little roller coaster, like if you go on a roller coaster and you get motion sickness from that kind of thing. I had a little G-force issue with that, but the falling was intense and amazing. And, it was definitely, I would do it again with somebody who said they weren't going to do it unless I did it with them. Like if my daughter said she wanted to go skydiving, if my girlfriend said she wanted to go skydiving, I'd jump again. I'm not going to go do it on my own because it brought me a thrill.
Yeah.
So there'd have to be a very convincing force taking me to do it. But
okay. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm trying to do everything in life. I go to music. I made it a goal to see every band I missed growing up. And so I'm doing that.
Awesome.
I've been to, 30 concerts since getting sober.
So cool.
Few of them on my own, many of them with loved ones and stuff. So,
amazing how you can just do all these things that people would think, oh yeah, it's when you're in the midst of addiction, you're willing to be reckless and do crazy things, but it's like, no, you can do all this sober and enjoy it and have memories, so
right. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
100%.
So how has the 24 more been taking off a little bit ever since you started it, and are people starting to come into it now and reach out to you about it?
Well, it's more, like I said, right now it's my coaching. So, I've got 3-4 clients, and the coaching, because of the volleyball club, I that is my income. That is my livelihood. That pays the bills, keeps the lights on, etc. So it does a couple of things. One, it allows 24 more to be very organic, and the coaching comes in and I can accept and refuse clients. I can have it be a place where somebody comes to me and is very authentically interested in the process. And, I've had multiple introduction sessions with people and had them just tail off. Because I don't need to chase the income. I think
Yeah.
is largely what allows it to be that way. So the answer is I'm not actively trying to create more events, more interest in that field right now. I'm working on the volleyball club and working with my coaching side, my life coaching side. And the life coaching I run through the 24 more with a lot of the principles that I got through that sobriety and helping these kids kind of unlock those doors, with the idea that if I keep making the connections and doing things like this, it'll kind of just, I've been keeping the legs moving on it, and letting it be. So this summer, when we go on hiatus in June, early July, you know, maybe do some, like, put some more energy. I'm a big universal energy guy. I like to start pushing some energy into it, do the fall season of fishing. A friend of mine said that they have a person who's interested in doing a camping trip for sober people. I'm like, I'd be down on that. I can use some of the information that I learned from running those fishing events and putting into a camping trip, realizing it's more about getting the people together doing things than it is like, oh, if I don't get San Onofre and we're not camping on the beach, then it's not worth doing. Right.
Yeah.
And the likelihood of getting a camping site on the beach for 20 people in San Onofre without 3 years notice is pretty low.
Yeah. It's so true.
So, like, realizing like certain things can be okay, like doing it differently, because it's about who you're with, not about where you're doing it. Uh,
Exactly.
and so helping people learn processes through having gone through the process that I went through, helping people to see some success in it in their way as well, in their attempts to do sobriety outside of the basement.
Yeah.
One of the
What are
things, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to ask, if a client approaches you, what are some of the things that you look for where you think you'll be a good fit, or what are the questions you ask usually?
uh Talk about coaching, life coaching. So one of the first things I do in the primary call is I have them kind of do a life assessment, right? Where are the areas, 1 to 10, that, we kind of do a rating, like, so my professional happiness, where am I 1 to 10? My personal happiness, 1 to 10. My relationship, 1 to, am I drinking or am I not drinking? Do I need to be sober? Are you meeting with me because you're trying to manage your alcohol, or you're trying to manage your sobriety? Or you're just trying to grow in life, right? Why are we having this discussion? And then once we kind of get that gauge, we say, oh, it looks like these 3, 4 areas of your life, you're doing pretty well. These 3, 4 areas, it looks like you could probably use some improvement. And then we start identifying steps. Like, what are some steps that you're willing to take? What are some steps you think will help? And a lot of what I do is really just guiding people to understand that by taking small action steps, they can create large growth. Um, and then after no more than probably 2 sessions, you can really get a grip on whether or not somebody's interested, because they start doing the steps, they start making the changes, they start setting alarms, waking up in the morning and opening the blinds to their house
And you don't have
and
to follow
for a
up and push
walk.
them and all that stuff.
Right, right. They come to you saying, hey, I tried all of these things. This worked, this didn't, this worked, this didn't. Let's create new action steps because I want to see the growth that I saw last week. Or I didn't grow. Let's try something different, right? So how do you become an active participant in your life? Right.
Yeah.
When I stopped pointing the fingers for my problems outside of me and started pointing my finger metaphorically back at myself and saying, I'm in control of everything that happens to me.
Mm-hmm.
How do I change it? My life got better, right? Life doesn't get easier. I tell my clients that are trying to get over to manage sobriety and alcohol, I said, life doesn't get easier when you get sober. Life gets better. It doesn't get easier.
Yeah.
Nothing gets worse when you're sober.
Yeah, I've never heard of anybody's life getting worse getting sober.
Yeah. Your life's not going to get worse when you get sober. Well, it's not going to get easier, but it will get better.
Life still
So,
happens, but you can
yeah.
actually
Yeah.
challenge it this
Life,
time.
life doesn't care if you're sober or not. It'll still, what, I don't even remember where I saw it. It was on one of those 8 bajillion Facebook, Instagram feeds you see every day. But somebody talking about, the day after somebody dies from either suicide or alcoholism or any kind of drug overdose and stuff, all of your loved ones wake up in the morning, even if you're not there. Life goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be there tomorrow when the sun comes up? Or do you want everybody to wake up without you? Life's going to go on. Life doesn't have emotions. It doesn't have, sympathy. It doesn't have empathy. Life is just a series of events that occur whether you're involved in them or not. So
Yeah.
be involved in them.
Yeah.
Make yourself available, and your measure of joy will be balanced by your measure of grief, or your measure of grief will be balanced by your measure of joy, yin and yang, whatever you want to call it, right? Having lost my mother last year, I think I got sober so that if we look at it in this global context, did I get sober so I could handle it? Did I, because if I was still drinking, it would have been this mountainous thing that just sent me on the hole. Like, did I get sober so I could handle it, or did I handle it because I was sober?
Yeah, that's true.
And I
Some
get
of the
to
things that
feel
happen, that, like, after you get sober, you're just like, it's out to challenge me. What if this happened if I was still using? I would just use it as
good.
an excuse to go darker and darker.
Mm-hmm. And I get to feel grief because I was loved.
Exactly.
That's
It's a reward.
yeah. It's not a negative. My grief is a reflection of the amount that I loved and was loved. So if I extrapolate that out to my job as successful, I'm successful and I love what I do, but it also comes with parent complaints and all of these things that we consider negatives, right? I get to have those negatives in my life because I have a business that's growing and is successful. So we have to see that there is no joy in life without pain. There is no success without failure. Otherwise, it'd be really boring. It'd be a really boring life. If all we ever experienced was joy, we would have no joy because it would just be mundane, right? So how do we filter in all of the emotions, all of the experiences, and say that's one that I don't want to repeat. I don't ever want to be laying on my back staring up at the ceiling of a hospital bed and have a doctor look over me ever again until it's time for me to go. Like if I can make it to 85 or 90 or 95, God willing, and I'm healthy and my life is coming to an end and I'm looking up going, God, I did okay. Right. I've got kids that love me and I've got people that relied on me and I was worthy of that. I was worthy of people's faith and attention. And I worked hard at some of them being a good person. Right. And people I know, when I looked at addicts and AA and stuff from the outside when I was younger, I'm like, God, I don't want to be associated with those derelicts.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a bunch of losers, right? And now that I've been through the program and I have this just deep, strong connection with so many people in the program, some of the best humans I know are in the program. They're just good human beings.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
I'm a
tattoos
huge
up the
member.
side of their face, scars all over their body from the lives that they've lived, both emotionally, mentally, physically scarred. And they're the first ones to show up at your house when you need something,
Mhm.
setting up chairs, taking down chairs, going to community events, making food for homeless people. They're just good human beings.
So true.
It's interesting what perspective does, right? We're not all the packaging that we come in. We're the acts of our lives create the paths that we get to walk. So through our actions, we live. And, it is a program of action. I didn't want to like downplay the importance of AA or any 12-step program or any organized program for sobriety, because there are many out there that aren't 12-step, right? I think they help us focus on being good human beings and getting our reward through action and service, versus a dopamine hit, literally or figuratively, right? I think that's a very long-winded explanation for what's going on with 24 more, but
No, it's amazing.
we catwalk.
One of my final big questions is, what advice would you give to anybody out there struggling right now that's been in your position, 5, 6 years ago, who's out there struggling, sober curious? What advice would you give from your experience?
Without like minimalizing it to what you hear every day in the rooms, right? Like, you'll be ready when you're ready, I guess. At the end of the day, when when you, depending on when you start and end your day, right? Some people say my new day begins when the sun rises, or I've completed a day when the sun goes down. It depends on when does your calendar click over to a new day? When you wake up or when you go to sleep? To provide yourself space every single day to live with grace, that gives yourself permission to do something wrong, learn from it, and try it again. Sobriety is not going to come to you simply because you say you want to be sober. You have to try to do it. And you're probably going to try to do it and fail. And you're probably going to try to do it and quote unquote do it wrong. And you're going to do it and somebody's going to tell you you're doing it right. And someone's going to tell you, I can't believe you're doing it that way. That's stupid. And you're going to hear all of this conflicting messaging and all of this stuff. And if you just allow yourself the grace to do it every day to the best of your ability, it'll come to you. But
Very well said.
You have to do it every day.
Very well said.
I go ahead.
No, you first.
Oh, I said I allow myself today to be sober the way I used to allow myself to drink. I give myself an excuse to be sober every day rather than giving myself an excuse to drink.
Great way to look at it.
So,
and just like your title says, 24 more, would you like to shout out to my listeners kind of where they can see your page, reach you, if they ever wanted to reach out? And
I meant to look that up. Is it at 24 more at 20.4 more, I think?
Yeah, 20 lowercase .4 .more lowercase. So, yeah.
All lowercase and the number 4.
Yep.
Yeah, you can come find me on Instagram. 24more.com is my website. There's some stories and stuff on there that I've added, a few, 3, 4, 5. And those are the only 2 places that lives. You can reach me through the website. You can reach me through Instagram. I'm always actively looking for, you said, what would I tell somebody? I guess this would also kind of pertain to it as a closing remark. If you come across this and you come across my page and you need someone to talk to, you need a place to just be heard, whatever, please understand you are never alone. You're never truly alone. One of the things that we do learn in the program that is very, very valuable is to be an ear, to be somebody of guidance, even if it's just, I don't live in Idaho, but let me see who I can get you in touch with, right? That is enormously valuable to always remember that you're not alone. There is always an option. And to reach out and find those people. And if, you hit the message, send for a personal message on Instagram and you find me that way, send me an email through the website and you need something, you're going to hear back from me, right? And you're going to hear something back. Even if it's, I don't live where you live, but here's your local, here's a website, here's this, here's that. Call me on the phone, let's have a conversation, right? You got to know that you're not alone. There are millions and millions and millions of us doing it every day, and all of us, for the most part, will stop for a minute and help somebody who needs to hear a voice. That's reaching out a hand to help pull you to the other side of the line.
Awesome. No, really appreciate it. That's, I think my listeners will really be grateful for this entire interview. So thank you so much for opening up, sharing your story, showing what happened during the dark days and how you've recovered and how you're helping other people come to the light now. So really appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity and any chance we have to provide hope for one person.
Thank you.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.